All right. Back again. Gonna review another of my recent games. Uh, just lost one. So currently number 10 global, the 41.1% win rate. So still not too bad, but you know, got a long way to go if I want to get to rank one. Um, but I'll do a loss. Maybe next video. But I think I'm gonna do another win here because this was kind of an interesting game. Um, all right, here we are. Another interesting game just because there's a really strong player here. Um, and I think the other strong player ended up making some mistakes. Um, whereas I think I played a pretty clean, game from start to finish. So I think there might be some good lessons to learn here. So, first we can look at the competition. Got Black up first. 28% win rate, same last season, so a little above average. But then we've got Red, who is 33.3% win rate, number 26 global at the moment. 32.5% win rate last season, finished 141 global. So, Red is quite a solid player. And then OJ, 30.2%, 262 global. Last season, though, just 10 games and one win. I guess after he did his 10 placement games and wasn't too happy with the results, so he stopped playing. And 26.7% in season 14. Doing a little better this season, but quite clearly, Red is the strongest player here. So Black's up first. Black takes the 5, 9, 10. All right. So I think with these videos, I'm obviously mostly, viewing myself as the protagonist and, trying to analyze my own game. But I'm going to try to, critique the games of others, especially if I'm playing with a particularly strong player. If I'm playing with a very strong player, I'm definitely going to, try to critique that person's game too, because, lower level players make mistake after mistake, and I can't really go through each person's game, right? That would be 2-3 hour long videos, and that's no fun for anybody involved. So, I'm going to mostly focus on Red and myself here, but, we'll note the mistakes and the decisions of Black and OJ as well. So Black takes the 5, 9, 10. I don't really have any problems with this pick. This is basically how the board is going to play out. Black takes 5, 9, 10. Well, spoiler, I'm going to take the 8, 5, 10, so that goes. The weak board, 4, 5, 8 goes. 8, 4, 3, and 6, 9, 3 to fourth. Although that could have been a different decision, as we'll note in a bit. And then the middle maybe starts to get eaten up. First, probably the 6, 9, 12, the 3, 6, 11 on the or, and then, Black and first will have a choice possibly between the 2, 9, 10, and, maybe the 9, 4, 11, or the 5, 6, 11, or even the 8, 10. That's roughly what we're looking at with this board. So are we cool with Black's placement? Yeah, I think he also could have considered the 5, 8, 10, just full or weak shape. Honestly, that's probably what I would have done. Just because there's not a lot of OWS on this board. There is quite a lot of brick. I don't, but taking the full OWS opens up the 5, 6, 9. And if mistakes are made, it opens up the 5, 6, 9 plus the lead port, which is, I would argue quite strong here. So, no problems with Black's first pick. Is it the strongest? arguably yes, but arguably the 8-5-10 is slightly better. I think this comes down to a matter of preference. So I take the 5-8-10, again, expecting the 4-5-8, the 6-9-12, the 8-4-3, and the 6-9-3 to be the next four off the board. Hopefully leaving me with the, wheat sheep combos in the middle, or potentially the 3-11-6, right? Obviously, if a different sort of decision is made, right, the 6-11-12 with possibly the 4-5-8, if that player decides to forego the brick, I might be stuck on the 3-11-6 with just sheep, but I'm totally comfortable with that. The 11 and or is is an inducement to pick that spot, but I don't view it as absolutely necessary here. I like taking the brick wood combo here, just so that I can, really open up the center for myself, and we'll really have everything that we need. I also love the idea of getting onto the 2-5, and I'm thinking at this point that I'm going to be the person with either the only road path or the clearest road path. So yeah, for me the 5-8-10 is just very clear. What I'm thinking is probably orange takes the 4-5-8, and then fourth as a strong player, I would think he would take maybe the 6-9-3 and the 6-9-12, and then OJ would get the 8-4-3. So that would leave me the 6-3-11 with the or if it places out a little differently, the double sheep 6-3-11, which also has a nice road path, and I get on that 2-or, which, as you'll see at the end of the game, becomes quite important. So if that would leave me with the only road path, it plays out slightly differently, but more or less as expected. OJ takes that. I don't like that road pointing towards the 8-10. Just go for the wheat port. And then red, the strongest player, does something quite strange. He basically says, fuck the ports, I'm going for the center of the board. And we'll see later how that plays out. Personally, as red in fourth here, I would have taken the 6-9-3 and the 6-9-12, pointing towards, at the top, the 3-4-1 ports, and at the bottom, I'd point towards the 11-12. But this was his decision. And then obviously that leaves OJ with that spot at the bottom. Okay, then my decision. So very clear for me. I want to start with the dev here. Now, I could just take the sheep, guaranteeing my road path, but to me, this opens up the board more. Black as not the strongest player here. Well, even if he were a stronger player, I personally, if I were black in this position, I'd be looking at the 2-9-10 and the 8-10. I want to spend a moment on this, even though it's another player. I want to spend a moment on black's decision here because I find it to be quite interesting. If black takes the 8-10, he doubles up the 10, he gets the strongest sheep, and he makes a claim to OWS for himself. He opens up the center of the board, yes. But I believe by opening up the center of the board and by denying OJ that 10 or you basically make the claim as black that I'm doing OWS, basically forcing everybody else into a road game. So I think honestly that makes a lot of sense. If I'm black here, I'm really considering the 8-10. Now as black, I'd also consider the 2-9-10, right? Nice to get that other source of ore. And again, as we will see, the 2 becomes actually quite important to my own game during the final minutes. Never underestimate a 2. Black could play defensively and break my road path, but it's not clear from the start that I'm really the strongest player. But anyway, I've given myself 2 settle spot opportunities here. Even if black does take the 10-3-11, that would just be too defensive. But then I'd still have the 5-6-11 and then the brick port, and I'm very comfortable playing with that, even without the road path. But again, giving myself that opportunity, that optionality of the road path is key. And I'm pretty confident black isn't going to take that spot. He might take the 9-10-11 for the double sheep, but that still gives me a road path with no settle in the middle. But black takes the 2-9-10, as we see. meaning there are lots of spots in the middle to compete over. And this obviously becomes a key focus of the early game. Now, again, as black, to be honest, I might just take the 8-10 here. That's just simply my style of play. I don't mind leaving the middle open as much, especially considering that, red's not even pointing towards the ports. Even if red does ultimately dominate the middle, or if I dominate the middle, or if OJ comes back around for the 6-5-11, that just creates a lot of road paths and a lot of road competition, and kind of leaves black free, especially if he's, betting on this 10 variance to just buy devs. And but I think the 2-9-10 is also valid here. You might want to just point up and concede those middle spots, though. That's an idea, maybe to avoid some robs. But overall, I'm not bothered by black's. But to be honest, I think that red's placement is the strangest, despite him being the strongest player. So the 11 rolls. Happy about that. What's black got? Nothing. All right. I'm going to try to go through this a little faster than the previous video, but I'm expecting that I might fail. All right. I roll an 8. So let's analyze this decision. I decide to buy a dev. Don't even attempt to trade, just buy a dev. Why do I do this? Well, there's a lot of sheep on this board. I'm not too worried about giving up my 3 sheep. What I'm seeing is that, sure, black does generate more ore and sheep than I do, but I'm not going to sit around and wait for these I generate a lot of brick and wood. I'm not worried about getting plowed by black yet. No, I want to give myself this double play optionality. That's essentially the thing. And that's why I started with this 6-3-11. Even if I lose road here, I want the double play optionality. I want the potential. I've got good production. I'm not worried about citying. In fact, sitting here without a port is just too challenging. Unless the 11s really roll, it's just while attempting to city here, I'd likely clog my hand just a little too much. So I buy a dev, go to 2 cards. I love that. I trade for a sheep when I finally do get closer to this road settle on the 3-10-11. My primary goal is the 3-10-11 here, again, to create that double play opportunity. Orange rolls a 6. Orange's perspective. Back to me. Tries to get some wood. Makes sense. Red rolls a 6. Red's perspective. All right, he's got a settle in hand. No settle spot. Back to my perspective. Drops of road. Again, red here is trying to dominate the middle. That was clear when he chose not to go towards his ports. Black's perspective, 3 rolls. Putting another dev into my hand. Black's perspective, still nothing. Passes. As we can see from our opponents, not a lot of trade offers. I think there may be some missed opportunities there, but as becomes clear, black is more focused on building than buying devs here. So we roll a 5, finally putting a wood into our hand. So we're going towards the center. I'm comfortable here passing with a dev and with a knight, sorry, and a dev plus a wheat in my hand. I'm okay with that. Obviously I'm cognizant of the fact that I could get plowed by black. It would require 2 9s and a 10. I think that's a lot to ask for. And black may decide to plow red. So I may have, with the knight in my hand, I may have an opportunity to negotiate with black for some non-black deals, to leave me that spot. If anything, the 4-9-11 is a little bit stronger with the better sheep there. So more pips. So I think that, it would take a lot for black to plow me, and even if he has it, I might be able to negotiate, but, I'm comfortable here passing with this hand. With only 4 cards, I want to just pass and try to get that spot down. Before I wanted to get a dev into my hand again, just to get some pacing, and I had 5 cards. the difference between 4 and 5 cards is immense. I have no doubled numbers at this point. So you pass with 5 cards, by Black's turn, I could have 8. Whereas here, I'm not going to have 8 cards unless I make a trade. So this is, just important hand management, right? If you've got no doubled rolls, 3 rolls later, and you've got 5 cards, you could have 8 cards. But if you only have 4, you're going to have a maximum of 7. So this is just my way of, of explaining how I avoid 7ing out. We go to OJ, we roll a 2, there's the power of the 2. He builds road towards the 8-10. Okay. A 10 rolls. So let's look at Black's hand. Black now has 2 wood and nearly a city. Back to my perspective. It's Red's turn, and Red has sort of a stuck hand. And he just passes. Yep. Doesn't try to trade. May have been able to try to pop a dev there, but, trading with Black, unsure, maybe for 2 cards. But that's not what he's going for. He's just focused on building that 9-4-11 settle. All right, Black's turn. Let's go back to my perspective. I get confused because the placement of each person moves when you change perspective, so I like to recalibrate and go right back to my own perspective. All right, Black's turn. Black rolls a 5. Black's got a perfect city. I think he is more focused on that. There's no brick out there, so no way for him to plow either of us. So Black clearly just builds a city here. All right, my turn. Then 9 rolls. The worst roll there, because Black builds a city, and he's still now, with that 9 roll, he's pretty close to plowing me, right? He just needs a 5 or a wheat trade, and there's a lot of wheat on this board, so obviously I noticed this immediately. The 9 puts a brick into Orange's hand, and 2 bricks into Black's hand, and we see that Red still has no brick. So obviously, instead of putting anything into the chat, we can see the brick right here. There's 3 brick out there. I am desperately trying to get this 3-10-11 spot. I've already got a dev. I'm willing to trade my entire hand. I'm willing to trade 3 cards, wood, wheat, or for 1 brick to get this settle. That's how key it is to me. I'm even willing to give it to Black, those 3 cards. So as you can see here in the top right corner, I'm trying to trade desperately. I'm getting counter offers, and ultimately, right, after failing with the other cards, I try to give the ore. I know that the ore is the ultimate inducement. I know that OJ wants to build a city. He wants to buy devs. Even Black wants more ore after citying. So I try to do ore for brick, and I fail. And ultimately, though, I am able to do brick for wood ore. I would have actually given the beat as well to OJ there for that settle, but so basically, what matters this turn, right? The 9 rolling, knowing that Black is close to possibly plowing me or Red, puts me into panic mode, right? I want that spot, right? I want to set up the double play opportunity for myself. I want to set up the road path for myself. As we'll see as the game goes on, I don't actually succeed at the double play, but I do win with road. So this spot is critical. Also important, this spot gives me the coordinated 11s. It triples my sheep. Right, I went from a 3 sheep to doubling the 3 sheep and an 11 sheep. So I've tripled my sheep production. I've doubled my 10 wood, given myself a road path, double play opportunity. I've got the coordinated 11s. I've got a good level of production now. That spot is key, absolutely key. It's worth trading all of my hand for that spot. OJ's turn. 3 rolls. There we go. Double 3. OJ buys a dev. Gets a knight. Back to my perspective. Red rolls an 8. Putting brick into my hand. Red's got a big hand here. Wow, Red has a huge hand. Back to my perspective. Red settles and passes. Interesting. It's Black's turn now, but Red's passing with a wood, 3 sheep, 2 wheat. there is some brick out there. Almost wondering if, red could have traded there, for a road, but black's turn. Black has 2 roads and 2 sheep. And builds 1 road. Good hand management on black's turn. Not sure that sheep for wheat even exists there, but he doesn't even, he does try. He tries to go to 0 cards with his settle, but he fails. All right. Back to my turn. I roll a 6. So I've got a little bit of a stuck hand here, and I really don't want to pass with 6 cards here. So I desperately try to trade for a wood, which does exist, right? Everybody has wood, so what I'm doing here is right. I don't aggressively try to trade for the wood. I ask red if he wants insurance. Red says no. I say okay. I could probably try to give 2 cards for a wood there, but I'd rather keep the wheat and the sheep in my hand. I could probably do wheat brick for wood there, but I'm also okay passing here. The only doubled rolls are the baby rolls, so I'm putting myself at a little bit of risk, but I go off of instinct there and say, okay, we'll roll the 5 or the 10. The 8 rolls, so good, still not over, 8 cards, right? The idea there with passing was that, my bigger rolls, my 5, 6, 8 are not doubled. So, although I'm taking a little bit of risk, I'm not taking a huge amount of risk. If you've got cities everywhere and every roll is doubled, you are taking a big risk, passing on 6 cards. But, alright, it's orange's turn. He tries to trade, fails, passes. Red has a big hand here. Let's look at that. Oh wow, he has 2 roads and a bunch of wheat and sheep. He's trying to make some trades. I'm trying to get some cards out of him, but we fail. He just road settles the 11-4. So this, I think, what's the dynamic that starts to develop here is quite key. So red, I would argue, has overextended himself. He has very little wheat nor he has no port, but he's showing the most points, putting him in somewhat of an awkward position, as we'll soon see. Black rolls an 8. Black's got a road and 2 sheep, so obviously he's going to try to trade for his... Oh, does he even try to trade? Nope, he doesn't even try to trade, knowing that his sheep is basically worthless with, as we can see, the whole deck of sheep already distributed amongst the players. Alright, the 5 rolls, which I'm very happy about. I've got a huge hand here. But I do something quite interesting, as we'll see. So I'm either trying to road settle the brick for it, as I have a bunch of brick in my hand, or I'm trying to pop a Deveret. I build 1 road, signaling my intention. And then I'm unable to trade for the wood. So instead, I pivot to trying to buy a dev. So many players would stop at this, probably the sheep brick for ore. But I don't stop. Instead, I trade the brick for a sheep with OJ, going from, let's see. Let's go back to the beginning here. I had put up a lot of trades. So I've got 1 wood, 4 brick, 4 sheep, 2 wheat. So I do brick for sheep, and I drop a road, and then I 4 for 1 the sheep, right? I had a pretty stuck hand here, right? Because here, if I drop the road, I still have 9 cards. So knowing that there's no war out there, no war whatsoever, I decide that I'm going to get another dev by 4 for 1ing my sheep. I've got a lot of sheep with the 3 and the 11, the 3 doubled, and there's a lot of sheep on this board, so I don't mind 4 for 1ing the sheep. Now, this is a key move, because I could 4 for 1 the sheep for the settle. But what I'm noticing here is that red is overextending himself, and he's also a strong player, and people might, Black and OJ might be looking at his win rate, just like they're looking at mine. But I'd much rather remain on 3 points while, red, builds up and gets more points. I'd rather buy devs here. So I get another knight, which is perfect, right? It's exactly what I'm looking for. You could make the case to settle there, for sure. But I do not want to be porting for wood when I produce so much of it. Much rather port for the ore and get this double play going. Another thing to bring up is you could port for the ore, and maybe, is there any wood? I mean, there is a wood in Black's hand and in OJ's hand, right? You could make the argument for a brick wheat for wood trade there. But again, I would much rather buy a dev, pace army, and settle. I produce a single brick. It's not like I have a city on the 8. The brick port has only limited use until I either city the 8-5-10 or get a mono, in my eyes. An 11 rolls on OJ's turn. Obviously, a very important roll both for Red and I. We can see Red's hand. We can see my hand. All right. Excuse me. OJ simply settles, passes. Red rolls a 4. Red's got a huge hand here. He's got a dev, a road, and a bunch of cards. Red's trying to trade, trying to get that city down, clearly. Or a road settle. Yep, Red's trying to either city or do a road settle here. He fails. He buys a dev and builds one road towards the center of the board. Passes with 6 cards. Back to my perspective. Black's turn. Another 11. That's Black's hand. A road to wheat. So he can settle here, and he does. Now it's my turn. I roll. I've got a pretty nice hand here. And what do? Well, I noticed that Red is coming for the middle of the board. To be honest, I'd much rather this 5-6-11 than the brick port. Again, the brick port is of limited use until I either city the 5-8-10 or get a mono for a potential brick mono. So I'd much rather plow Red here and take the middle. The 5-6-11 is a huge spot, more than doubling my wheat production. Increasing my sheep production and really making Red's game, the strongest player, harder. If I'm taking that spot, he's just wasted a road. He's still 2 roads and a settle away from a port. Red is going to be slow here. So I want to take that spot away from Red. Also taking that spot denies OJ a road path if he were to plow Red himself. So I'm trying to trade, but I don't even know. There's 1 wood out there. I'm trying to trade for 2 wood. So that's my fault. I wasn't paying attention enough. And you'll notice this about my style of gameplay, right? I notice a play and I desperately try to go for it without often thinking about the, what's even in other players' hands. I'm just fishing, right? I fish for trades constantly. I throw up, if you look at the stats at the end of the game, I almost always am putting up more trades than anybody else, just fishing, seeing what is out there. In fact, there weren't 2 wood out there. There was no way for me to plow. So I simply buy another dev, which, is totally fine with me here. I do have 3 brick in hand. I do try to trade for another dev, right? Understanding that we've got some doubled rolls. I don't want to pass on 5 cards. And guess what? I'm able to give OJ 2 brick for a wheat and pop once more. Now, this makes OJ's hand, it actually puts OJ over. This is a funny one. OJ is on 7 cards, so everything is fine. He's got, kind of a stuck hand, but he's on 7 cards, and he takes instead of just taking 1 brick, he takes 2 brick, right? It's a little greedy, and he goes over 7 cards and puts another dev in my hand. I think I'm pacing this beautifully. I mean, 4 down devs is scary, but especially a weaker player might block Red or Black here over me, which is what I want to see. And OJ's turn, he rolls a 7. Greedy, greedy, greedy. He could have taken 1 brick, but he wanted 2. Possibly he was trying to plow Red himself, but, I don't think that would have been a good move on his part. That would have been overextending himself without a port. Red also 7s out here. And OJ robs me. Seems fair with 4 down devs. He builds a road towards the 11-12. I guess you could argue it's dangerous to give OJ 2 brick there, as maybe he gets the 5-6-11 with a 4 roll or a port, a 4-for-1 port, or maybe a trade. But to be honest with you, I'm not too worried about OJ taking the 5-6-11. If he does, good for him. Again, I just view it as him overextending himself. I've still got my road path. It really only fucks red. He's far from the wheat port. It doesn't bother me too much if he increases his wheat production. It's just more cards for him to 4-for-1. So yeah, I think getting that extra dev on my turn again reduces my odds of stepping out pretty massively. And I've just got I'm so far ahead in knights here. I mean, OJ has a knight. Let's see. Red has a yacht, so I'm in a good spot with army pacing. I mean, my double play opportunity is still in a good spot. And what we can see as these dynamics are developing, right? Black's the only one with like a developed setup at this point. He's the only one with a city and with a port. OJ and Red are just, I just don't think they have their priorities straight here. All right, we roll an 11 on Red's turn. So Red now has quite a nice hand. And what does Red do? He uses the op to city. Sure, there's an argument for this, but very important to note that Red has overextended himself. He's got a road leading to the middle that anybody could plow. He's way above us. He's way above all of us in points. He's got a city. He looks scary, especially when you consider his ranking and his win rate. But he's overextended himself. He's got no port. Very important. Because Black rolls a 7 and solos Red. And this is the danger of Red's position, right? His overextension of his position. Black passes, rolls. I roll a 6 on my turn. And what do? I buy another dev. I am absolutely wanting to go to 0 cards here. I have no desire to hold for a city with a mono in my hand. I'd much rather get a knight. Turns out I get a road builder there. Not really what I'm looking for, but it is what it is. OJ rolls a 7, and he robs Red. So Red just lost a couple cards because of, his decisions. I've got 0 cards, and Red rolls a 7. Red, as a strong player, no doubt recognizes my position with 5 down development cards, but he can't rob me because I chose to go to 0 cards there. Many players would choose to hold the Or Wheat Sheep that I had in hand in hopes of a city. I've got no desire for that. I want to go to 0 cards and get my opponents robbed. Red builds a road towards the center. Black rolls a 6. I've got 0 cards. What do? I play a knight. I think you could argue against playing the knight here, right? Stay on 0 cards, but I choose to move the knight. I'm seeing a play. The play is that Red's only got a few cards in hand. They're all sheep, I believe. Oh, sorry. I misspoke there. Red's got only a few cards in hand. He's got a sheep, a wood, a brick. The sheep thing happens later. I can rob his card. He has no port. I think I can make it such that it's difficult for him to settle this turn and set up the road settle with the road builder on my own next turn. It's not a guaranteed play, but it's a play. So I rob the wood out of Red's hand. Red's now only got a brick and a sheep. It's going to be hard for him to settle. It's going to be hard for him to get trades here. If the 11 rolls, maybe he can do Or for wheat, but he really needs a 3 to get that settle spot. So again, I'm viewing Red's position. I think he's overextended himself. I see a play. I can rob Red this turn, make it hard for him to settle, and then road settle myself the next turn, plowing him, and essentially ending his game. I'm not fully ending his game, but making his chances extremely difficult. I roll a 7 after playing the knight. I rob Red again, bringing Red down to 1 card. And what happens next? OJ rolls a 7. And he robs Red, right? I've got 4 down development cards, but in OJ's perspective, right, Red's still the stronger player on 5 points with a city and 4 roads. That's that's the power of pacing behind, as I'm doing here very successfully. OJ passes. He may have wanted to try to trade for a wood there, but Well, there's a wood in my hand. I don't think I would have been likely to give it to him, but let's see. Yeah, I think maybe for brick, I think maybe OJ should have tried a brick wheat for wood trade there. Yeah, I would have gone for that. Almost certainly I would have gone for that as my brick is blocked. But OJ doesn't even try to trade. He just passes. All right, red's turn, rolls a 7. Red is now upset about my devs. He says, "Come on, dude, focus." He clearly wants he wants OJ and Black to rob me. Black rolls a 9. Pops a dev. Black gets a mono. Quite interesting. My turn. I roll a 9. Sorry. I apologize. Got to get used to this system. I don't roll. I play a knight off my 6. Quite key. I want to rob red, right? Again, I can't road settle this turn. I simply don't have the cards. So I need to make sure that red is unable to settle there. I need to set up the road settle with the road builder for next turn. And I roll a 10. Red's hand is now simply 2 sheep. It's going to be hard for him to get that settled next turn unless the 3 rolls. OJ rolls a 2. OJ has a dev in hand. Takes it. He's now got two knights. So he's my main army competition at this point. Black has foregone popping and decided to build instead. So, I can only get this double play off if I'm able to get another knight before OJ plays his and buys another. But I'm certainly pacing well from a knight and road perspective. Red's turn. Red rolls an 11. So red only has sheep in hand and one ore. He's not going to be able to settle here. He passes. And I have a big hand now with the 8 rolling. I've got card diversity, and I'm confident that I can road settle. Black tries to trade. Black is trying to trade for a wheat here. I guess for a pop. But he fails. Okay. My turn. I roll a 7. I say wheat non-block, right? This is perfect for me. I want to get that 5, 6, 11. Does anybody have a wheat? Only orange has 1 wheat. Nobody responds to my non-block. Orange doesn't respond. So now, what am I doing? I'm desperately trying to settle. I'm trying to give ore for the wheat, right? The ore here is key. The 11's rolled. Everybody's looking for ore. I believe that I can do ore for sheep here, but I fail. And ultimately, I get more and more absurd with the trades. And at a certain point, I succeed, right? This is the benefit of persistence, right? I give ore 2 wood to black for 2 sheep, making my hand a road and 5 sheep, and black's hand 4 ore and 3 wood. I mean, I guess what I'm seeing here, black is trying to set up like a wheat mono play here with this trade. It's quite an attractive trade for black. He gets all this ore in his hand. Maybe he can double city next turn with the mono. I think that's what he's thinking. But again, he doesn't have any knights down. What is his game? He's basically forced himself into a build to 10 setup here. He's not going to get army pacing now, most likely. I mean, it's possible with the mono, but unlikely. He's just put himself in a build to 10 situation. Anyway, I use my road builder. This is also important. I build my other road on the 5 rather than on the 2. And I do this to open up a safe settle on the 5 in case I need a settle to win here, in case the double play doesn't go off, right? I might need to win with 5 settle, or with a city. What would it be? No, I might need to win with 5 settles and a city, my VP and a road. So I set that up with the road rather than going to the 6-2. The problem with the 6-2 is it could get plowed by either red or black, whereas this is pretty safe. Even if red did build down here, which he can't really if he wants to fight road, he would probably not get all the way to the 5. So it's just a safe road for another settle if necessary. And I go to 0 cards. I'm at 4 points. I'm 2 roads and a knight from 9 points. OJ rolls a 6 and does not play any of his knights for pacing. Red rolls a 9. Let's look at red. 2 brick, sheep, or he just passes. He doesn't even try to trade. I suppose he's in a bit of a bad mood after the plow. Black has a huge hand, but unfortunately, 7's out. Back to my perspective, that's game, says red, right after that 7 out. I'm looking very good here with the double play, as red notes. And I do get robbed by black, which I think is justified here. Black buys another dev, ends up being a knight. I roll an 8. Nothing I can do. I don't even try to trade with 2 cards. There's no dev. There's nothing here. There's no mono. What I'm thinking at this point is, okay, best case scenario, I pull a knight, I settle, and I mono for road, or maybe I mono for 2 roads and the settle. But hopefully I can settle first and set up a brick mono for myself, right? There are other potential monos here, right? If I get a handful of wheat, there's a potential war mono here. But, I think generally this is probably going to be a brick mono, considering how much brick there is out there. Every 9 is 4 brick. Quite key. Okay, OJ plays a knight off of our 6, and he robs me. Justified. OJ has another knight, so I think he has to desperately get a dev here. Red 7's out. Then OJ robs black. Again, the benefit of my style of pacing. I've got no city. I think I'm the rob there, but OJ sees it differently. Robs black, knowing that black has 2 ore. Perhaps he's tracking well there. Robs an ore out of black's hand, and OJ buys a dev, which is another knight. So OJ's got army now. That's quite key. Red's turn. Red rolls an 8. Red is in a tough spot at this point, but he does have production. Red simply passes with 7 cards rather than attempt to trade. I'd be open to a trade here. He doesn't even try. Okay. Let's go back to my perspective. It's black's turn. Black moves the robber off the 10 to the 8, robs me. Totally fair. He rolls the 6. My turn. I roll the 10. Obviously, I'm trying to get let's see, what am I trying to do here? I'm potentially setting up the brick mono with this trade right here, but I'm also open to just settling. I'm open to settling with the sheep, or I'm open to giving up the brick and then monoing the brick, settling, and then using the brick to pop. I believe, there's absolutely enough brick out there for me to set up the double play at this point. In my eyes, if I'm monoing the brick here, if I sell, let's say the wood brick for 2 sheep, I'm quite confident that I'll be able to settle with the brick mono and then also buy a dev, which potentially sets up the win for myself next turn. And it also, with the 8 blocked, it makes it hard for red to take road, unless the 4 rolls or the 9 rolls and some trades happen. But yeah, if I'm getting that wood brick for double sheep here, I've given myself quite good odds of winning next turn. Despite this, in many ways appearing to be the early part of the game. But I failed to get that trade off. But red does give me, for some reason, a wood for sheep. Orange does. Orange, out of everybody, has been the easiest with trades here, and he's just giving me too much. I view him as, trading with not quite trading with the bank, but close enough. He does have 2 down devs, but even with army, he's on 5 points for him. And then I keep trying to trade, right? I don't stop. I don't just settle. I keep trying to trade. I want to do the brick mono, but I fail. I can't give the brick away. So I'm content to just settle here, right? There is still a lot of brick out there, but here's my thinking. if I can give my own brick away and set up, maybe a pop or a double pop, I mean, I could still mono the brick here and pop, but I decided to take a risk. I'm quite far ahead. And maybe it's silly for me not to mono there over one brick, right? If I had been able to give one more brick away, I would have monoed. That's my instinct. That's my instinct telling me, let's get a little greedy with the mono here. I think there's a strong argument to mono here. If I mono here, I can buy that knight, but I can't take road. I can't do both at the same time. And there's no guarantee that the next dev will even be a knight. So I decide to pass. I think you could go either way there. I think the brick mono is okay. Let's see. 4 plus, I would have gotten 7 brick, which, lines up with the stack being, where it is there on the screen. 7 brick would have given me, it wouldn't have even been a city. It would have been 1 card off a city. So I think it's the right play. It would have been a dev. But I'd rather set up my hand with some more wheat, sheep, wood, 1 or 2 or all 3 of those before doing the brick mono. If I had been able to give that 1 brick away, then the brick would have been the perfect city, bringing me to 7 points. But with the brick blocked, I think I could do better. I think it's arguable that even if I had given the brick away, the mono wouldn't have been ideal there. But I think there's an argument either way. I think it's a big decision, but I think it would have been okay to do the mono there or not to do the mono there. But I decide not to. I think that's probably right. The 4 rolls. Now there's a ton of brick out there. OJ settles. Does not play a knight for pacing. So I've still got this double play. I rolled the wood. Red's got a huge hand here, but no port. Right? We've already analyzed Red's position, his mistakes this game. He's got a huge hand. He's obviously trying to trade, and he just ends up building roads and 4 for 1ing for a wheat. He does buy a dev here, which turns out to be a knight. I think that's quite good pacing on Red's part. He's finally, trying to pace this well, but I think it's tough now for Red. 6 rolls. Now I've got a nice hand, but there's really no cards out there for me to mono. I could mono war. But black drops the city. Now the 3 rolls. As we can see, there's wheat, there's sheep out there, but there's no mono. There's no good mono here, right? I want a mono for road, and a dev, which should, most likely be the win for me there. But that mono doesn't exist. So I'm desperately trying to trade for a brick, which does exist. Quite a few bricks. Try and trade for ore, just throwing up trades. And guess what? Orange, the wax trader, trades with me. I do wood for wheat, and then I 4 for 1 for a dev, hoping for the knight, putting me on 8 points. Right? The idea there, got a 4 for 1 for a knight. I've got to clear my hand. I don't have a 3 for 1 port or the wood port. I have to clear my hand, and I do, essentially. But I get a VP, not a knight. So this puts new ideas into my mind. Right now, especially after Orange plays a dev here for pacing. Right, Orange plays a dev for pacing, blocks the 10, robs me. Right, he's got 11 cards. Now my mind is thinking, okay, well, you're probably not getting army, right? The double play window is rapidly closing. It's possible Orange has a non-knight. He pulls another non-knight. But the double play window is rapidly closing. The road connect is 7 roads, which would give me 9 points. So the mono now, hopefully, will be a brick mono with some wheat in my hand and some wood, and 2 roads and a city is my ideal win at this point. Let's see what Orange does. Orange builds 2 roads. I think that's a big mistake. He should be buying devs here. He doesn't know for sure what my last dev is. He should be 100% He doesn't know what my 3 devs are. I've just popped a fresh one. Very likely I have army. He should be buying devs. Nope. He instead builds 2 roads and then buys 1 dev. I think he could have. I don't see the point of those 2 roads. I think there are trades here with red, with the sheep port, with black. I think there are trades there to get 2 devs into his hand. I think he should be table talking there. My position, and maybe red's position too, right? He doesn't. He builds 2 roads. Back to my perspective. I've got 0 cards now. Red rolls a 7. That's an important 7. He goes from having a monster hand to just to settle on a sheep. He robs. Well, I have 0 cards, so he robs OJ. Settles. Could be on 9 points here. He is on 8. I think it's hard for him to close this game. Even if he is on 9 points, it's hard for him to get a city. Well, road settling is not too hard. Even without the wheat, he might be able to steal it. So I'm most scared of red at this point in the game. But there's not much I can do. But, now the thoughts are churning, right? If I can't win with the mono, I might still have to use it. We don't know what red step is. Black rolls a 10, putting 2 wood into my hand. There's some table talk going on. I'm claiming red's on 9. Black buys a dev. Turns out to be a knight. Keeps his mono. I roll a 3. Not much I can do there. I know nobody's trading me here. Suppose I could try to trade for a knight, but again, my thoughts are churning now, right? My thoughts have changed. I'm no longer interested in this double play, knowing that OJ has 2 knights. I could buy a dev here, but I'm much more interested in monoing the break and winning. I could have tried to trade. I don't think it would have gone through. Yeah. I wasn't gonna get a wheat from red's hand and also an ore. I mean, there's no trading there. There's nothing that would activate my hand. I'm okay. OJ takes army. Totally fine. He's just not the threat here. We're not worried about him. He robs red. Red could be on 9 points. Seems fair. I think it's totally fair to rob red there. Over me. You don't know what my devs are. I could have 3 VPs. But with the 8 block, I can't take road really if I've got 3 VPs. So I think it's totally fair to rob red there. He buys another dev, another knight. Red's turn. Red plays a knight. This is like a sigh of relief moment for me. Now I'm quite confident that I will win. Red robs the 6, blocks the 6, robs me. Totally justified. He doesn't even have a road in hand. Definitely red at this point should be thinking about how he can extend while also opening up another settle spot for himself, maybe on the 6-2. Although I'm sure he's worried about me plowing him with a road builder or a yop on the 6-2 or a mono. But red should be thinking about extending. He rolls a 9. Ugh, one of the worst rolls for me. He puts for an ore, buys a dev. Think it might be a good idea for him to try to trade black OJ for an extend there and then buy the dev, right? Say I'm on 8 points, I've got no devs. Try to get that 1 road extension. But he chooses not to. He decides to just put the sheep for an ore. I think that's probably a mistake not to extend there. He's already suspicious of me. With my connect, with potentially having a mono. I think that's a mistake by red. He should have tried to trade for a road. Red, by the way, just gets a knight. Black's turn. Moves the robber to the 8. Robs red. Totally justified. Right, I've paced this game beautifully. I avoid robs. Black's time to trade. Ends up 3 for 1ing for a wheat, buying a dev, which is the yop. Yep, he's pulled the yop that turn. My turn. I roll a 7. I block red. I'm agreeing with the other players. Red is the threat. He's also the strongest player. I think, there's no reason for me not to solo him here. Sure. I mean, I've got two VPs. I'm pretty convinced that that Black doesn't have three. I'm pretty convinced that OJ doesn't have, two. There's could be two VPs between the two of them. Worst case scenario. I'm comfortable blocking Red here, but Black and OJ have no winning plays immediately. I mean, even if Black did have three VPs, even the settle would only be, 9 points. I'm just not. And the odds that they have that many, the odds that he would have three VPs there are so low. We pass. There are no trades there for me. Again, just trying to set up the double play. Now OJ is potentially on 9, but knowing that I've got two VPs, I'm pretty confident that OJ doesn't also have two. But there's no doubt we're in the end game. I'm not the only competitor here. Other people can win. Nevertheless, I'm comfortable with the solo, even with OJ potentially on 9 points. He's not, right? And we know that it's very unlikely for him to be. I mean, it could be 7. It could be 8. It could be one VP and a mono, right? But even with that, there aren't too many plays here to mono for two cities. OJ's still several turns away from winning. Red plays a knight. Beautiful. Blocks the 6. And robs OJ. Guess that's fair. He doesn't know that I have two VPs, but he should suspect that I've got, all non-knights. I mean, I do have all non-knights, and that's quite clear because of my, lack of moving the robber on my turn. I think it's fair to rob me or OJ there. He only has one card. Can't extend. Doesn't. Black rolls a 3. Black has... Yeah, he uses the Year of Plenty just to settle. Taking him to... no VPs. So... taking him to 6 points with a mono and a knight. Back to my perspective. Yeah, still 3 VPs in the deck. Amazing. I roll a 9. I don't 7 out. I suppose I could have maybe tried to trade with Black here, but I just don't think he's going to take me under. I don't think he would do wood, sheep for ore. So, yeah, I'm okay passing here with 8 cards. There's simply not much I can do. And I roll a 9, a terrible roll, unless you have a mono. Of course, I'm thinking, right? There's at least 4 brick out there. At this point, I'm rapidly scrolling up. But there's not enough brick out there for me to take road, acquiring 2 roads, and also city. I don't want to take road for 9 points. I want to take road to win. Why? Well, now that red only has clearly 8 points, they have a lot of incentive to feed him roads here. I do not want to take road for 9 points. I want to set up the win with the mono. I pass after porting for an ore. Why do I port for an ore? Well, it's unlikely. It's much more likely I'll roll wheat than ore. I need the city. I'm settled out. To win, I either need an ore to pop for a 3rd VP, or I need an ore to city. It's quite clear. The sheep is just dead in my hand. There's no reason for all that sheep. Let's take the ore, pray for 5s, pray for 8s, pray for 4s, pray for 9s that I can mono. OJ plays a knight, another sigh of relief. And he robs red. Yeah, I don't agree with that move. The 2 rolls. OJ gets another dev. Another knight. So many VPs and they keep missing them. So now I'm quite close to the win. I just need a brick roll, right? I've got 2 ore in my hand now thanks to the thanks for the 2. Thanks to the 2. And yeah, that 2 came quite in handy. Comes in handy for Black too. Black's now got 4 ore in hand. Black's got a huge hand. 5 rolls. Beautiful. Puts a wheat into my hand. Just need a brick roll for the win. Red has 4 sheep and a wheat. He buys a dev, goes to 0 cards. He finally gets a VP, meaning there are 2 VPs left in the deck. Red is on 9. But he needs a city or a road settle. He's a lot of cards away from winning. But again, there's that fear that red's on 9. Black does not 7 out, rolls an 8. Black has a huge hand, but even with the mono, right? What can Black do here? Black set himself up for failure. He set himself up for a build to 10 situation. It's fortunate he got the mono. It's unfortunate he missed the VPs. What could Black do here? Well, he could absolutely mono my hand. I've got a lot of wood. If he monos my hand, he gets 6 wood. Okay, he gets 6 wood. He could maybe road settle the 6-2 or the 12-7 city, and there might be a dev in there. Yeah, there should be a dev in there. That's probably his best play here. Take my hand. Does he do it? No, he doesn't do it. He instead buys 2 devs, both of which, one of which is a VP, one of which is a knight. He uses the knight, and he blocks the 4, stealing from OJ. Anyway, all I can say, this is the benefit of pacing. I think Black really made a mistake there. Would Black have won with the mono? Wow, let's look at this. He may have had the win, he just didn't know it. Well, it wouldn't have been guaranteed. He would have needed that VP. This is his hand. If he takes 6 wood, he road settles. He's down to 3 wood. No, it would have just been city road settle. Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to pull that VP. No, Black isn't close to the win here, unfortunately for him. But definitely he should have considered the mono here. But again, that's the benefit of pacing. I look like I'm on 5 points. This is, I would argue, it's carelessness, right? It's not recognizing I'm 2 roads away. I might have 2 roads without the mono, right? I don't happen to, but let's see. 5 or 10 roll would be pretty close, but not quite there. But I could, this idea should be in his mind that I'm 2 roads for potentially 9, maybe 10 points if I have 3 VPs. I think Black should mono there. Yeah, and potentially, I think I've lost the math again, but Black could have definitely monoed there and gone to 8, potentially 9 points since the first dev was a VP, and set up, a winning turn for himself next time while absolutely killing my hand. But he doesn't. And then the biggest mistake of all, he robs OJ. I mean, OJ just bought a fresh dev. There's no reason to think that he's on 9. I say it's going to be a close one, and I roll the 8. Alright. So at this point, I'm desperately scrolling up and counting how many brick are out there. I need 2 roads. And then I need 4 more brick. So I need to mono 5 brick for the win. So I'm desperately scrolling up. I know there's 2. Are there 3 more? I'm actually not sure. I put out some trades, right? There's not a lot of time. I know that if I give a brick away for a wheat or an ore, I'll have enough. Obviously, they refuse to trade with me. And I mono, I get 4 ore. And yeah, that's enough. Sorry, I only needed 4 ore because you only need to build 2 roads, which means you'll have 4 wood in hand. So I did this math. I knew I needed 4. I knew there were at least 2, but I scrolled up and I realized that the 9 had rolled. And after scrolling up, I realized that not only did red have 2 brick, but there were also bricks in oranges and black's hands there. So I knew I had the win before monoing. But while I was scrolling up, I was putting in these trades for the ore and the wheat just to make if I had gotten one of those trades off, then I would have had the win for sure, even if, there was 1 less brick out there than I'd counted. I just wanted to make absolute sure I was going to win here. And I do. So, yeah, this game's a good good lesson in pacing properly. We've pointed out some of the mistakes, especially of red. You know, if I were to analyze black and orange completely, that would also probably be a 2 or 3 hour video. I'd rather avoid that. So mostly focused on myself and red here. Red's a top player, but I see a lot of missed opportunities on Red's part. I think he even took the wrong setup to begin with. But lots of mistakes by OJ, trading me very liberally, even though I've got all these non-knights. But I set up a beautiful position for myself, right? Paced behind, set up the double play, failed at the double play, but got VPs instead. In these ranked games, devs are going to make the difference.